And welcome everybody to another Bangers and Classics podcast. That's with me, James Rupper, and him, David Malloy. And where have you been, David? What have you been doing?
Oh yeah, well, something's a better left unsaid, James. Let's just say that I'm looking for a new engine for my boat, Gulf, and I'm not having much luck finding one. But the specifics of that would probably better remain unsaid.
All right.
Yeah, at the moment, yeah. Well, there's various things happening that I'd probably best not talk about on a public forum. Anyway, yeah, I've not been doing much. I've been doing that kind of thing, doing a bit of research into a forthcoming book as well. Went to Edinburgh last week to do that and found out some interesting stuff in connection with it. It's not about cars, so you might not be interested, but I can assure you it will be a bloody fine book.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's what I've been doing. I haven't seen too many classics. And again, the ones I've seen I've sort of just disregarded, just been so blooming busy. So yeah, not much to report, if anything to report on the car scene. I should also say the weather up here has been pretty poor, quite a lot of rain, so people with classics are very wisely not going out in the rain in them.
Oh, that's fair enough. I've seen loads of stuff, David. I'll just give you. I saw a Saab 96 in rally spec. Whether it was a real rally spec 96, I don't know. But it did look magnificent, actually. And I do know somebody who has one of those, but he doesn't live here. He lives a long way away, but he could have strayed up here, and I'll have to ask him. But that was good, yeah. All the extra, fog lamps and stuff, lamps on the roof, and it looked brilliant. So I really enjoyed that. Mercedes 200 being used properly, sort of slightly scruffy, and that was always very good. It was at a tyre place, so obviously having some new tyres fitted, so that was really good. A W123 for anyone who's interested in the W numbers.
That's the Ted Rogers edition.
Reverse. Very much so. Yeah. And I saw a cyclist that Bangers and Classics would actually approve of, David. Now, as you know, it's very wrong to speculate on a lady's age, but this lady had seen a few summers, I think. But the magnificent thing was that she was cycling uphill. She had a bicycle with a basket on the front. She had no helmet, and she was smoking a fag. It was just so brilliant. I just thought, yeah, well done. So she couldn't give a monkeys about anything, and it was wonderful to see. So there you go. A Bangers and Classics cyclist in the old-fashioned way. Well done to her.
Obviously, as a devout non-smoker, I have to object to the fag, James. Sorry, old boy.
Well, she's been doing it a long while. She can still cycle, David, so well done to her. She wasn't sponsored by anybody. There was no John Player Special logo on her. But she was doing a bit for real living. Well done.
Right. Okay, yeah. Well, you talked about the Saab 96. I think I told you the story about the Saab 96 I was once a passenger in.
No, you've never told me.
I'm sure I did in the podcast.
You've bored me with a lot of stories over the years, David, but I've never heard that one.
I'll bore you with this one then.
Yeah, okay then.
It's actually on my website. You can go there and read it.
Oh,
it's
no.
A story called 96 Tears.
Yeah.
In 1991, I was in the Naval Reserve with a bunch of other guys who lived in or around the town of Ayr, which is my hometown. And we used to run a carpool up to our centre, which was in Glasgow. And we were known consequently as the air crew, even though we didn't have a helicopter, which we used to use to comic effect sometimes. Anyway, one week it was a chat. I'm going to call him Will, because it's not his real name. I better not tell his real name. There's a much funnier story about him that I dare not tell online or on air. But anyway, Will was an old Saab 96. So we went up to Glasgow. Nothing much happened. A normal night, good fun, good bunch of lads driving back down. It was night time. It was slightly foggy, as I would call it. The road wasn't too busy. Car came up behind us. We saw headlights. Headlights start flashing. So, of course, the first question was, you got your lights on? Yeah, I've got my lights on. Okay. And car flashes as light goes past on its way. What speed are you doing? Are you going too slow? No, I'm doing 50 or 55 or whatever. That's fine. And what else could it be? You know, your indicators on your hazards? Nope, absolutely nothing. Another car coming up the other way, and someone starts flashing the lights. And this continues with various cars flashing the lights and making gestures. We thought it was perhaps Idiot's Night Out or something on the roads. So we got back to the place where we all changed cars. We claimed out the Saab. Had a look round it, yeah, the lights were on, yeah, it all seemed fine, hunky-dory. Climbed into our own, and the other three of us climbed into our own cars, drove away. Next week, we reassemble at the same place, someone else's turn to drive. And we get into the car, and we're travelling up to Glasgow, and Will says, "Oh, guys, I found out why those cars were flashing at us last week." And he was completely nonchalant about this. Yeah, what was up? He said, "I had a leak in my fuel tank, and there was petrol going onto the exhaust. I was scooting flames out the back. There was a blooming afterburner on it." Blomqvist never got to drive in the 96 with an afterburner.
No,
but that
right.
was it. And Will wasn't in the least bit bothered. He could have blown a lot of us to Kingdom Come.
So actually, we're quite lucky to have you here with us today, David.
Unlucky depending on your viewpoint.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but that is a genuine story. The other story I know about Will involves the TVR and how he got it, and I can't tell you, and I wish I could, because it is so funny, but I'd probably best not. So, should we move on and do this?
Yeah, we can do.
Classic? Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, folks. I just can't do it. And this week's Banger Classic, James.
Yeah.
This being the 75th episode of Bangers and Classics, and probably 74 too many for most people, or 75 too many.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. But we're doing it on the Audi TT Mark 1.
Oh, we're not doing the Rover 75 then?
No, we did the Rover 75. You know, it's it's basically an upgrade car for Hyacinth Bouquet, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Rover 75.
Yeah.
No, that was an email, James.
Oh, okay.
You didn't read the email, did you?
Oh no, I did. No, I just thought that would be quite appropriate. Either that or the Alfa Romeo 75.
Well, we did that last week or a couple of weeks ago.
That was wrong then. We done it the wrong week.
We always do it the wrong week.
Yeah. Well, can't you just replay that? Because nobody will notice at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you see, the problem is, James, we don't do things in the right order.
Oh, okay.
Right. We become noted for that.
Oh, all right.
So why break the tradition? Why break the habit? Yeah. Anyway, so we've got this Audi TT Mark 1. And what are your thoughts on it, James? Is it a banger or a classic, and why?
Well, strangely enough, I did write a book on them.
Oh, no.
I've actually written a book on the, although I don't know whether it's technically available anymore. So I don't think I earn any money from it if you rush out and buy it or anything like that. Because that was one of the properly published books by a proper publisher. And it's part of a series called The Complete Story. And obviously, the story isn't over yet, is it? So I should never ever have agreed to write something where it says the complete story, where it's not the complete story. And I was running out of things to say towards the end of the book, but never mind. I actually think they're fantastic value for money, and it's one of the cars actually, which do incredibly high mileages. There's statistics about, and the Audi TT is one of them that one of the cars that the DVLA has reported has done like over 500,000 miles. It's actually in the top 10 of ordinary cars, apart from vans and stuff. So strangely enough, it's been, it's a very reliable car, although there are some well-known issues, but on the whole, it's fantastic. And it looked stunning when it was new, and it still looks stunning now. And they're very, very cheap. It does, David, you're wrong. Whatever you're going to say, it's extremely well styled inside and out. Okay, it's a fancy Golf, but it is very, very good. And I think in a few years' time, people are going to go, were they really like a couple of grand? And they are. So if I was you, I'd run out and buy one, because you'll regret it in a few years' time. So there you go. It's a classic, David, and that's it. And we'll move on to whatever's next.
No. It's a squashed Volkswagen Beetle, James.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
It is a squashed Volkswagen Beetle. Obviously, as you say, it is a Golf. It's based on the Volkswagen Audi Group A4 platform. You'll correct me if I'm wrong about that.
I don't know. No idea.
You get them in front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive flavours, with 1.8 litre turbo or 3.2 VR6 engines.
Right.
And some of the later ones are DSG, which that's a gearbox, obviously, whatever you call it. I'm not keen on it anyway. Coupe Roadster flavours. Well, yeah, okay. There were a couple of class lawsuits in America. Did you know that?
Well, there's lawsuits in America about everything. I do remember there was particularly loads about Audis. They don't like Audis. Audis don't sell very well out there because they couldn't operate pedals.
What? But all the cowboys say Audi partner, don't they?
But no. So yeah, I take all of that with a pinch of salt, really.
That's a funny remark. They just go flying over his head, folks. You know that?
Yeah.
I don't know. My talents are wasted here. My talent is far too lofty, I think, to be wasted in the wind. Believe that if you like. But yeah, there are a couple of lawsuits. I think one of which affected the TT, which wasn't specifically about it, and that was about timing belts on 1.8 litre engines.
Right.
The other one was the instrument cluster, which was allegedly defective. Now, I believe that is quite a well-known issue, a well-known complaint of some people. What do I think of the TT? Well, I don't know, James. It's a difficult one because the interior is a bit like a coal hole. It's unremittingly dark and boring. That's it. Yeah, you're going to say, but everything's to hand. It's all ergonomic. Yeah, fine. I agree with that. But it's just dull. It's a car that's very competent. You could say it's hyper competent, even if you wanted to, but it doesn't thrill. And that's the problem. Certainly with the Mark 1. The Mark 2, I think, is a better looking car by far than the Mark 1. I did think about buying one once, I have to admit that. So I can't hate them. But I didn't do it, so perhaps that tells you something as well. It's not a banger. I wouldn't say it's a fully fledged copper bottom classic. It's somewhere in the middle ground. It's a decent effort, a good car. If you've got one, you'll probably love it. For me, not really quite hitting the mark. There were other cars of that era, of that type, I'd probably rather have. So, yeah, it's a sort of middle rank car. It's good, but not great. Is that fair enough?
No, not really, David.
I knew you'd say that.
So there you go.
Nah, it's classic schmassic. Cobblers, I say. Anyway, we'll take a break while Mr. Ruppert and I debate the matter off air. You're listening to Bangers and Classics, the motoring podcast presented by James Ruppert, who sometimes says, "Oh my days," and David Malloy, who walks around in a daze. So we're back fresh from debating all the burning topics of the day, and we burned a few marathons as well, did Mr. Ruppert and I, and we're going to continue with this 75th edition of Bangers and Classics with a slightly different format. And the reason for that is the last couple of days I wasn't feeling too clever and really couldn't be bothered doing any research. I feel a lot better today, I'm pleased to say. Some people might not be so happy, but hey, who cares? So what we're going to do is, without any research whatsoever, any preparation, we're going to bounce a few car names at each other, and we're going to get each other's thoughts on them. So this might be fun, it might be rubbish, it could be somewhere in between, it could be some, all, or none of the foregoing. Let's find out. So I've got a car for you, James.
Have
I'd
you?
love to know.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I'd love to know what you think of it. The Fiat Tipo Mark 1. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, they're great. Yes, I did drive one of those once as a comparison to other things, and it was the most fun to drive of its contemporaries, which included an Astra, a Renault 19, and a Rover 200.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah, it was better than a Renault 19 by a country mile, but there you go. I really like the Tipo. It was very nicely designed, and in a way, Fiat have never really come back with anything that's sort of as good as that, really.
Well, they used the platform, didn't they, for, was it the Fiat Coupe?
Yeah.
Another car based on a Fiat platform that I thoroughly recommend at this time, summertime, is a Fiat Barchetta, which is based on the Punto Mark 1 platform. Lovely little car. Only thing about it is, well, apart from being left-hand drive, which really shouldn't worry you at all, is the gear change isn't the best, but that's about it. So James likes the Fiat Tipo. Yeah, they're okay. I'll go with that. I was saying, yeah, they're all right. I don't dislike them. I'll put it that way. They're not better than the Renault 19, but that's just James making trouble as usual.
Yeah.
So what you got for me, Mr. R?
Renault Twingo Mark 1.
Twingo Mark 1. Never came to these shores. There was a big movement back in the day to try and get it imported, and Renault completely rubber-eared it and didn't bring them over. I have seen one on two wheels at an event in 1997. Even got a video of it somewhere. It's up on YouTube. Did I like it? It's a town car. Yeah, big little funky town car. Good fun to drive. Typical Renault. Nice ride. Handled pretty well. Not the best engines or gearboxes, if I'm being honest. But it'd be okay. Would I have one? Unless I live in the city, probably not. What about you? You like it?
Yeah, I think they're really nice. Yeah, whenever I used to travel to European cities, there was always a bashed about one in the centre. It didn't matter where you were in Europe, you'd find them.
Was it you that bashed them about, James? Is that why there was always a bashed one, you see?
No, they were just naturally bashed about.
Right.
I really like them. I think they're good. I've never driven one. I quite like to drive one.
Yeah. They are they're still very popular.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I've got a friend of mine called Chris who writes to me occasionally. He's got one, so there you go. It's
right.
very cheap. He bought it in Berlin, and it was only like it was like 1,000 marks or something, and it was in and that wasn't the damage, which would be 1,000 euros actually, and it was in really good condition. So there you go.
Yeah, well, why not? If that's your poison, why not?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hit you with the Hillman Imp. What do you reckon to that?
Yeah, it has its place in the world. Really, it was funny when you were a youngster. Well, when I was young, you either liked a Mini or you liked the Imp, and there was never really a crossover between the two. There was never any love shared. So I remember leaving school, and there was I was in a Mini, and a bloke I was at school with was in an Imp, and we sort of ignored each other completely. And because he had an Imp and I had a Mini, so I don't know. It was an interesting car with actually quite a fascinating history. I mean, you could probably do quite a half decent film, I would have thought, based on the trials and tribulations of building an Imp near to you, David. But
That's right, they were built in Hillingwood, yeah.
certainly fascinating. Certainly, very good use of a fire engine, effectively, and it deserved to do far better than it did. It was just circumstances, very unfortunate, really. It could have been as big as the Mini.
Gave rise to an interesting kit car as well,
Yeah,
which has got links to the AC3000ME.
Yeah.
Kit car was called the Bahana Stables Nymph, and the guys who were responsible for that, Bahana and Stables, were the guys who produced the prototype of the AC3000ME, which was called the Bahana Stables Diablo.
Oh, right.
Which had an Austin Maxi engine originally. By the time AC got their hands on it and put it into production, very little apart from the basic shape remained of the original design. Very clever guys, but for various reasons, the project didn't succeed. They only made about 46 or 47 of these. So there were still some out there. And indeed, I wrote an article for a magazine about the Nymph, a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, James, I think. And the Imp was built, obviously, about 25 miles from where I grew up.
Yeah.
I wasn't really a fan of the Imp or the Mini, particularly. I didn't favour one over the other. Imp wasn't in the Italian job, I suppose. Maybe that was a deciding factor for me. A relative of mine, who shall remain nameless, had one and left her dog in it, a beagle, when she went to work. Now, don't leave your dogs in cars, people. It's not a good idea. But the beagle, who was a very smart dog, he ended up as my dog in the end, for a long story, decided to take his revenge by eating half the dashboard.
Oh, right.
And yeah, good lad he was too. Very clever dog. Served her right. It's okay. It's an interesting little car, as you say, and should have done a lot better than it did. I think really the Imp was one of the reasons it led to Roots' downfall in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
There we have it. So we shall move on to your next choice, James.
Oh, well, have I got to come up with another one?
Yeah.
Right. That's how this works.
That's how it works, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, a Subaru Justy. There you go.
Subaru Justy,
Yeah.
4-wheel drive.
That's right. Yeah.
God,
Well, you can have the 4-wheel drive one, but they're not all 4-wheel drive.
Yeah. Nah, I didn't fancy them really.
No.
No, they're kind of like, I suppose to me, fall into the same sort of category as the Suzuki Jimny.
Yeah.
Just not really anything to write home about. I suppose if you got a 4-wheel drive version and lived in a rural area or out in the sticks and had to go on sort of rough roads or across country, yeah, that would probably make a bit of sense. But didn't really float the old boat, I'm afraid. I'm saying that about a lot of cars these days. Quite disturbing, really. Do I actually like cars? That's a good question. Do you like cars, James?
I don't know. You certainly like boats, David. You know a lot about boats, but
Not really. No. I can assure you, I don't hee-haw about boats.
Yeah.
No, even less about cars.
No.
Or only slightly more about cars.
Yeah, but you see, this is it. You do get into debates with people, with younger people, when you say how good things were in the past, and actually, you don't want to do that when you're as old as we are, because it just sounds very, very grumpy. But actually, if you look into it, and I will have to write a feature about this at some point, is that actually the old days were better for cars. They were better for most things, really.
There was much more variety.
There was.
Change is okay, but it's got to be for the good. And a lot of change is just for change's sake, and it's cobblers, and I don't like it, and it should be abolished. There you go.
Oh, okay.
That's it. Fair enough. Subaru Justy, it's okay. Nothing special. But I've got a Subaru for you, James.
Oh, have you?
Oh yeah. I have. It's fun enough. It's on my list in front of me.
Is it?
I can just about read my own handwriting. It says here the Subaru SVX or
Oh
Subaru
yeah.
Vehicle X, as it
Mm.
was called. Do you like those?
Yeah.
I saw one not so long ago.
Yeah.
I think it was in the podcast. Yeah, it was. It was in a supermarket car park in Irvine.
Mm.
There was an SVX, and I thought, blimey, I've just written a book with the SVX in it.
Yeah.
It's in Lesser Spotted Classics, the tragically underselling book that I wrote with Russell Wallace.
All right.
Damn fine book, very good value. It's got the SVX in it, amongst other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think of it though?
Yeah, no, it's really good. I've got a Subaru SVX in a book. What I wrote. Yeah, if you look at Curb Crawler, page 49, there's one I saw in the 90s, and it was £12,000 at the time, and it had done 15,000 miles, and I described it as being futuristic and space 1999. So if it was only for fans of the program, I think, what on earth is he talking about? But I think it looked like a very futuristic
Hmm.
car. Extremely rare. You're very lucky to see one now
Hmm.
because there must
I
only
know.
be a handful left.
Now, I can tell you how many there were last year. I
Mm,
have a copy of the book in front of me, believe it or not, for other reasons. But yeah, I mean, the Space 1999, give it gull wing doors,
mm,
I think it would be suitable for Ed Straker,
yeah.
who is, of course, one of the characters in the UFO program. Now, here we are, sometime last year, just over a year ago, there were 44 left on UK roads, there were 103 on Sorn. The figure's probably changed since then, but that was how many there were then.
Yeah.
And I had researched that. Well, I actually asked the bloke down the pub, but we're not going to
Yeah.
admit that, obviously, publicly. So, yeah, very futuristic car, James.
Yeah.
Only problem with it that I can think of was you can only get it in automatic form.
Mm,
You could have an automatic or an automatic, no manual option. Though I believe some people have retrofitted manual gearboxes.
all right.
Yep, that came across in my research. The bloke down the pub told me.
That was good.
Anyway, we'll take a break there
Yeah.
and we'll come back with a few more cars and we'll wrap this up for another week. This is Bangers and Classics, the least well-informed podcast in the known universe. This is the final section of the 75th episode podcast. We'll have to be quite quick because Mr. Whippet's got to go off to a certain address for an investiture. I don't know what title he's getting.
No, well, there you go.
Think of a few he might deserve.
Yeah.
We'll go into that either. Anyway, James, I suggested the Subaru SVX. What you got for me?
Oh, we're still going on this. All right. Okay.
Didn't do anything else, didn't
Well, because what I have to do now, because I prepare for other things, but I have to reach over to a Bangerpedia and just rustle up what I can find there. I just wondered what you made of the. I don't know whether we've ever talked about it, but the original Defender. No, Freelander. There you go. Yeah, Freelander.
the Freelander, as they call it in the adverts.
That's right.
Well, I think I have been in the
Mm.
Freelander. I've never driven one. I have been in the Freelander. A pleasant enough car.
Mm.
Let down, of course, by issues with the K series. That was its Achilles heel, I think.
Mm.
With the K series. To me, all cars of that ilk, unless you need them for a reason, they're a bit pointless because they're too heavy, they're too big. They contain lots of things you don't need, like four-wheel drive. On the other hand, if you need it, there's a car you used for what it's intended for, which is, of course, to go places and tow things and do bits and bobs like that.
Yeah.
I think it's a very fine little car. As I say, the only issue I really had with it, the only issue it had I can think of was with the K-Series engine, which, of course, was a problem common to all K-Series applications, and that was the head gasket,
Yeah.
which you can go a long way to dealing with the multi-layer steel head gaskets and making sure your water pump, your coolant pipes are in tip-top condition, as well as your radiator, of course. If you look after the cooling system, basically, and don't let it overheat, yeah, you should be fine. I think a lot of them were bought by people who perhaps used them in the school run, and that was it. And it's a terrible waste of a car as well. Why not buy a Renault Clio or something if that's all you're going to use it for? Save a bit of money, save a bit of fuel, save a bit of space. That's just my opinion. Obviously, other people have different opinions.
No, that's right.
They're entitled to be wrong. You knew I was going to say that, didn't you?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. So anyway, I'm going to hit you with something there. This is You love German cars, James,
I
almost as much
do.
as you like Italian cars. That's
Yeah.
been the theme, your love for Italian cars.
There you go. Yeah.
This one's German, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a BMW Z3.
Hmm.
Do you like it? If so, why?
I think it's sort of grown. It's grown on me. I didn't particularly like it when it came out. I thought it was a bit fugly, really,
Hmm.
and a bit sort of underwhelming, really, until you got the coupe Z3
Hmm.
thing, which was interesting, M series thing. So yeah, I could understand that. But on the whole, it just seemed, I don't know, it seemed like one of the worst cars that old James Bond had, really, didn't it? Really, I think that was the main thing against it. But
He did Z8 as well, didn't he? Yeah.
yeah, the Z8's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not too sure about that. It sort of doesn't look particularly right, does it?
Hmm.
It's very very odd styling, and that's the whole point about a convertible is it's really got to look the part. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Styling is, to use a common word these days, compromised,
Mm,
I think. Guy I know has got one. He's had it since the 90s, still uses
yeah.
it. One of my relatives has got one as well. I had a couple of Z4s. So I'm familiar with at least some of the packaging, the
Mm,
Z3. Not too keen on the styling. Not very keen on wet weather handling, which isn't brilliant. I think this is a step back from the Z1. The Z1
mm,
I absolutely love. It was a clever concept. It looked great. Drop down doors, etc., etc. It was rumoured, and BMW will probably come after me for this, but it's only a rumour, and I'm just
mm.
repeating it here, that Matra Automobile was involved in the Z1 project
Oh right.
because, well, the galvanized chassis, the use of composites, and Matra were the pioneers of both hot dip galvanized chassis, and they were world leaders at the time in the use of composites. And if you look in the Matra Museum at Romorantin, there's a prototype sports car, convertible, little roadster called the P43, which looks something like perhaps a first attempt at a BMW Z3. It may be no relation whatsoever to the Z3, but it's worth looking at. It's online, you can probably see it and judge for yourself. The Z3, as if with BMWs of this ilk, they've got great engines. The six-cylinder engines are really creamy, very nice. They're not as up to the standards of the Alfa Busso engine, but nonetheless, they are good engines. The chassis isn't quite as good, and the looks aren't quite as good. But if you find a nice, well-kept one, yeah, why not? They're nice cars for a warm, sunny day. Like we're not having up here just now. I don't dislike them. I wouldn't rave about them, but if I was to choose between one of those and an MX-5,
Mm,
then I'd be heading off in the Beamer. But other people may, of course, disagree, and again, it's their right to be wrong.
yeah.
So yeah. So what you got for me, James? Any more?
Oh, all right. Oh, something else. Let's have a look. I don't know
Oh,
what you think about estate cars, David, and we always seem to be drawn to Fiat. So I personally am drawn to Fiats all the time, but a Fiat Maria weekend.
oh, you knew you were going to say Maria.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, and, I don't mind estate cars.
mm,
They're practical.
mm,
They've got a purpose. They're not the best looking vehicles on the road, but that's not the raison d'être of them, whatever that means.
mm,
Suffered the usual problems associated with Fiats, unfortunately. Decent looking car, decent range of engines, roomy enough,
yes.
practical enough. I wouldn't grin at one, I'd smile at one. Unless I could
Yeah.
fit something I really wanted in the back, like a blooming outboard engine, in which case
Yeah.
I definitely would be grinning at it.
And,
You only find the blooming engine, but that's another story. But yeah, I like it, but I don't love it.
no.
Yeah, it's a nice enough car. I think we'll close with one other car. This is one we've never talked about before,
All right.
and I feel it's kind of a bit of a Cinderella car. It's kind of lost in the mists of time. It wasn't a bad looking little car. Actually, there were two cars, James. There was a Renault 15 and a Renault 17.
All right. Yeah.
1970s coupes. They weren't the last word in anything in looks or performance, but quite pleasant little cars. A sort of French equivalent of maybe I don't know, a Capri 1.6, would you
Mm.
say?
Yeah, I would say so.
Probably handled better.
Mm.
What do you think of the looks of?
Yeah, no, I think they look fine to me.
Yeah, a bit
Mm.
different and very Gallic looking compared to the more sort of sculpted lines of the Capri. But yeah, you never see them in the roads anymore.
You don't? No,
No,
absolutely.
these cars are vaporware. They just don't exist anymore on our roads. And yeah, I'd love to see one. 15 was the lower powered of the two, and the 17 obviously was the higher powered. There was styling differences between the two, and I think the 17 was the more attractive of the two.
Mm.
It was also the more expensive of the two, which is probably explains why it got the tweaks and the 15 didn't. But yeah, nice little front wheel drive coupes. Not bad cars to have for a young man about town in the 70s, I'd say.
Mm.
I wasn't a young man about town in the 70s, I was just a kid. But you were probably a fully fledged adult with a mortgage and 8 kids by then, James.
I was working in the 70s. You know,
Yeah, I know.
I had a proper job. I had cars and all sorts. It was
What
great.
happened to you, man? What happened to you?
It was all downhill from there, David. It was dreadful.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's all been downhill for this podcast since day one, really, hasn't it, as well? So
Yeah.
it's kind of a common theme here. But that's it for this week. We'll try and do something back to a more regular format next week. And until then, simply say thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves.
Yeah, cheerio, everybody.
What about your usual retort at the end of it, James? You've usually got a witticism to fire off.
Have I really? I don't know.
Yeah. No. You're not. Oh dear. Things are getting bad.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear. Well, I don't know. We're driving back to the 70s, I suppose.
But you live
What
there
I was
anyway.
doing. Now I'm going to go and see the Hounds of the Baskervilles with about 3 people in it on Friday. I don't think there's any hounds in it.
Is that the sort of reduced theatre company or something?
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, it's people mucking about on stage. So,
there's one thing we didn't cover in this week's podcast, and we really should, just to pay tribute to Bernard Crippens.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, dear old Bernard who passed away. Very well liked guy. He was very good actor. Obviously the voice of the Wombles, James.
Yeah, he was absolutely keeping everything tidy.
Yeah, and he was in a Doctor Who film. It was Daleks Invasion Earth. Was it 2150 or something?
It was the greatest film ever made because of the Morris J. vans in it, which will still be around in the future. And that struck me because I saw that at the cinema when I was young, and I just thought, wow, post office vans, which is what they mainly were at the time, these are going to be around in several generations' time, in 100 years' time. Wow.
The Daleks loved him, apparently. They just couldn't. That's why they invaded. They just couldn't get enough of them.
No, because they had ramps so they could get in.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A major flaw in the Dalek design, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was okay. They had lifts and everything, didn't they? I remember on the ship.
Yeah.
But I don't think it bothered them really. But that was when Doctor Who was pretty good.
It was good. It was a very entertaining film. Bernard Crippens was a very agreeable type. He was a paratrooper, James.
No, I didn't realise.
Did his national service as a paratrooper. He's the least likely person I think could have been a paratrooper. He just didn't come across. But he obviously there was more to Bernard than meet the eye, or met the eye. Anyway, he's gone now, and to simply say thank you to him for brightening up my childhood. That's a worthwhile and noble thing, and he certainly did that.
Well, he did it with at least one song, right? Said Fred. So there you go.
He was in a lot of things, James. Hornby TV ads as well. He was just to miniature sizes, and he was in a film, and I think about 80 or 81, where he played the detective Dangerous Davies.
Yeah, I did see that.
It's a very entertaining film.
It is.
And he's very, very good in it.
And what car is he in that? Because it's like an old Austin, isn't it?
Yeah.
And his dog is...
his dog.
Yeah.
His dog can't live with him because he is... I can't spoil the film for you. You'd have to just go and watch it. It is shown from time to time. You can get it on DVD. You might even get it on YouTube or whatever, if the copyright holders don't mind. But yeah, certainly give it a watch. There was a series with Peter Davidson in it who played Dangerous Davies, but you want to see the original screen adaptation, and I think the best one with Bernard Crippens. On that note, we'll say cheerio.
Yeah, cheerio, everybody.